Good evening, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn land. This is Jan Edwards, the president and CEO of Paving the Way, and I have just one of my newest friends with me this evening. And I met Lisa back in October at a conference in Tampa. The conference is designed specifically for law enforcement officers, and because I happen to know a few of those, and the person running the conference, they're like, yeah, just come over, because the more I learn, standing in front of young people, it makes a difference for them too. So toddled over there, met Lisa, and we've become fast friends ever since. And Lisa's been in the anti-trafficking space for a very long time. She lives out in Arizona, and I'm going to have her introduce herself and give her a context of her background. We'll get into a little bit about what she's doing today, but really, this is called a parent tech talk. She's seen things that I know will make a difference for parents to have the kind of conversations we need our parents to have with kids. So Lisa, just welcome. Thanks for spending some time with me tonight. I just so appreciate you and your personality and really what you're out to cause and what you're standing for. So please introduce yourself and let people know what you were up to, and then a little bit about what you're up to now.
Okay, will do. Jan, thanks for having me. And I remember when we met back in Clearwater in October, sitting around the table outside by the beach. Um, so my history is in 2004, I switched careers actually, and I don't even think you know this. I was in the medical field for 25 years. I was a paramedic for 10 of those years, and was going for nursing. And while I was working in the medical field, what I found was that the patients needed much more than what I would be able to give as a nurse, the time and their social needs. So I thought about it, and I said, you know what, I got to switch my career now. So I went into social work. And so I was putting in jobs to do different things. And I put in a job for Child Protective Services, not knowing a thing about Child Protective Services. And I got hired as a case aide. And this was why I was going to ASU. So I got hired there. And one of my very first cases, actually my very first case, the child was a 14-year-old child that at the time, if you remember way back when, they used to consider them child prostitutes. Okay, so this was that far back. Yes. And so there was still arrests going on and the whole thing. So this girl was 14 years old, and it was very hard for people to her behaviors were off the chart. And at the time, we didn't know what we know today. So I went and spent a lot of time with her. She was in a behavioral health hospital, and we would color and everything. We built this really close relationship, and she just had the most beautiful smile I ever seen and these pretty green eyes. And come to find out that her father had molested her. Her mother had substance abuse issues, mental health issues, and she would prostitute herself, and then started doing it to this child at an early age. So the mother died, and the father was long gone, and there was nobody. So the child was in the system, her and her brother. So with that being said, those two really, really stole my heart. And I was like, yeah, we'll fight for this girl forever. And to this day, I still stay in touch with her. She's she's in her 30s now, completely out of the life. But one thing she said to me, and it always stuck in my head, she had a pimp. And I said to her several times, I said, why won't you talk to PD about him? And she said, Lisa, because he gave me more than my family did and treated me better than my family did. And I will never turn my back on him. And had she went ahead and talked, told police and stuff, I mean, he would still be in prison, but he's out. So yeah, and it's really sad, and I will never leave my mind. And I will. Oh, and this man used to slice her neck with a knife, and he branded her and beat her up. And I mean, I could go on for days telling you the things that that kid has gone through, and still, she, that's the way she viewed him. And since then, while I worked at Child Protective Services, I was there 11 years. I became a case manager, then a supervisor in the young adult program, and had many kids that were trafficked. Many of them. I see so much, Jan. One of the things that really had bothered me the most was the fact that PD would recover them, or they would come back from being AWOL because they were listed as a missing juvie. Okay. Then they come back, and before you can get services in place, they're gone. Not knowing when they're going to come back again and if you're going to even see them again. So, I, I just didn't know what to do about it, and I felt lost. And just to even get people to change their mindset that these were victims, that they were not doing this because they felt like it. Even me, and I'll confess, when we were switching from prostitution to trafficking, even I would even talk to some of my kids when they came back. I had one girl say to me, "Miss, I like doing this." She goes, "I make more money than you do." And I couldn't argue that. So I said, I just couldn't wrap my mind around it, but I think a lot of it was ignorance.
Right. Right. Well, and that's really one of the things we do with these, monthly conversations is, and it's interesting because, this is Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month. And so many events are happening, because we're all back in person, right? So everybody's trying to, do stuff in person. And one of the lead law enforcement officers, he's now retired, said, "Look, it took me a long time as a law enforcement officer to wrap my head around that they didn't choose this, because it took me a long time. And then once I really kind of sat down and had conversations and realized the force, the threats, the coercion, the drug addiction that was introduced by their trafficker to keep them there." He's like, "I had no idea." Because for years, he goes, "I don't even want to tell you the names I called them." He goes, and then after having conversations, and I said, "Yeah, no one chooses, like, really,
Yeah.
choice. Like, you chose to put on that blouse today. There's a choice.
Yep.
Do I wear this one? Do I wear that? You know what? I think that matches the color of my, yeah, that's like really a choice.
Right.
Versus, do I sell my body to feed my kids, or do my kids starve?
Right.
That's not true choice. It's perceived choice, but that's not really bottom line choice. And I want to go back to, because you worked in the system for a really long time.
Yes.
And there's some commonalities, there's some common factors to, because most people, I'm not going to say all, but most individuals in this life don't know they're victims.
Right.
I think they chose it. So, what are some of the commonalities that you saw? Some common, and I hate to use the word cause because that implies cause and effect, but what are some of the things that cause, like you really saw some similarities to, like the one girl you said, was abused by her father, and the pimp treated her better than her family. That speaks volumes, so that's one thing that you could see. So what are some other things that really you were like, oh yeah, I can see that as a commonality, and that is a commonality. So we can break up some of these myths of it's just one way.
So most of the girls, because I did not have a lot of boys that were trafficked. I had some, and honestly, probably 5 at the most in all my years. And I had about 3 transgenders and 2 LGBTQ. And then that was that. But one common that probably 90% of between the girls and the boys, they were all sexually abused prior
Wow.
to that. Now, when I will tell you one thing, when I was left Child Protective Services, but out here in Arizona, it's called DCS. It changed names quite a while ago. I went to work for Mercy Care. Mercy Care is a Medicaid, it's managed care health plan in Arizona. So they were the health plan that provided the behavior health, the behavior health health plan for the kids. So basically, if the child needs services, they're the health plan, so they would go to wherever, and then they fund the services.
Right.
So I was the child welfare program coordinator there, and while I was there, the governor's office, victim services department of the Human Trafficking Task Force had asked that we help create something to get quicker services in place for kids. Yes. So I partnered up with Phoenix Police Department's Human Trafficking Unit, worked with the sergeant, and him and I came up with this a really good program. But it was a huge collaborative. I never seen partners come together like we all did in that community. Well, so I did it from 2017. We rolled it out to 2021. We served 368 minor victims.
Wow.
I kept data on that. And while I was keeping data, I actually did it because I wanted to see what were the common things. And I couldn't keep everything that I really wanted to because I didn't have time for that. But I had quite a bit of columns. So the sex abuse, there were more kids that were in child welfare than there was that were not. However, during COVID, the numbers started switching. And I started seeing more kids that were not in DCS custody start rising up. So and then what I seen was, because I always thought, well, substance abuse has to be high. It has to be all of them. Well, that's not true. They don't all have substance abuse problems.
No.
So I learned a lot. But when COVID was there, opioid shot right up. And then that's when I started seeing more of the victims, the child victims, were having that issue. And I'm telling you, when we were recovering them, and they were going straight to the hospitals so that they could get the medical and behavior health done immediately. Oh, we were having they were just high as a kite, and they were overdosing, and then one hospital wouldn't take them because they didn't have the ability to treat them if they started having issues. So that was a behavioral health hospital. Wow. So they wanted them to stay at the medical hospital for 3 days so that they could detox. And the hospital is like, well, we're not a detox place. And then the behavioral health hospital is like, well, we're not a medical facility. But it's like, someone just watched this kid.
Yeah, hot potato. Take the hot potato. And, it's really, I heard a statistic today that we talk about this a lot. If we recovered every single person that's being exploited, online or in person, we'd fill every hotel in the country.
I believe that, and that's unfortunate. That is so
and there's a missing, that's really why we do prevention. And then one of the other, because I was at the Circuit 10 symposium today, and one of the women from One More Child, Jody Dominique, she said that we have 1,600 beds in the United States for child victims of human trafficking. Last year, there were over 10,000 reports.
And
like
that's
reports.
just reports. Exactly.
That's just reports.
Yes.
And so housing is such a big and that's just a teeny tiny piece of it. She explained it really brilliantly, because there's immediate crisis care, and then there's the next phase of care, which is right after crisis,
Mm-hmm.
and then right after that is kind of interim, detox, all of that stuff, and then there's like that next phase, and then there's the last phase,
Mm-hmm.
and which is reintegration back into life, and you and I both know the recidivism rate is huge. It's
Mm-hmm.
huge. It's huge.
Gigantic.
And so prevention work in my world is the thing
Yeah,
that can alter all of this.
I agree.
And I get it's an uncomfortable topic. I so understand it. I didn't want to be with it.
Yeah.
I'm over in Ethiopia going, what are you talking about? And the more we can talk about it, the more we can shine a light on it, the more conversations we can have about this, it becomes less taboo. It becomes less, and I don't want it to be so mainstream that we're just, oblivious to it. It's like, oh yeah, they're being whatever. No, it's like there's that gray space, of it's not this, but we've got to keep it top of mind.
Mm-hmm.
NCMEC reported had over 29 million reports of child sexual abuse material in 2021. I can only imagine what it was for
Oh,
2022. It's double from 2019. Double. So having these kinds of conversations with our kids, with our friends, with our grandmas, with our neighbors, with everyone we can,
yes.
it's what's going to start. We've got to get to that tipping point where kids start to pick up the swords and go, no, 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 you're not going to send that picture. No, no, we're
Yeah.
not going to do that. No, you
Right.
can't have me. You don't get me. This is my body. You don't get me.
So,
No.
speaking of prevention, and when you say that, one of the things that bugs me is the music today.
Mm,
A lot of that rap stuff, and if you listen to the words, it's all in there. I mean, and then the kids get to their head and they think it's cool, and then they want to be like that. That happens to a lot of my kids in DCS, and I would listen to them. They want to listen to music when you're driving around with them, taking them to appointments and stuff. So, you let them listen to it, and
yep.
I would listen to some of the words, and I'm like, oh no, nope.
Mm-mm.
And then I turn it off.
Yeah, well, and there was a song, I can't remember the name of it. It was the Alan Thicke song. My daughter called it the rape song. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Mhm.
And I as I started to listen to the words, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's right. But because it's got such a great beat, the kids don't
Yes,
even pay attention
yes,
to the words. They're just singing the words, having no idea what they're putting into their brains. And that's the thing about brains and brain science is our brain cannot distinguish what we're watching from reality. So we really do have to mind what we put in our
yes, we
mind.
do.
I
Absolutely.
won't watch horror or thriller movie. I just won't. I don't want
Mhm.
that stuff in my brain. It's too close to real life. I want happy endings.
Mhm. I
But if we're having our kids watch this stuff, there's a reason why our kids are having night terrors. There's a reason why our kids are dealing with this stuff. And not all rap is bad. All right. I just want to be straight about that. It's not all rap is bad. And there's a pimp element to a percentage of it, that we've got to take responsibility for. And I was actually on a panel, this is years ago, and a majority of it was women of color in this space.
Mhm.
Now I'm Cherokee Indian, right? I know I present as white, but I'm Cherokee and Choctaw Indian. I'm almost full blooded, and I asked that question because if you look at Megan Thee Stallion, the life looks great.
Mhm.
Looks great. The cars, the jewelry, the money, the fun, the travel. Okay. No one shows the other side of the coin.
Mhm.
And every single one of those women were like, we don't tell the other side of the story.
Mm-hmm.
None of us tells the other side of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Rap's just a sliver of it, that kind of rap, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a small piece of it. It's managing the conversations for our kids to get. They're far more valuable than what their
Right.
bodies look like.
Yes.
So much more valuable. And for them to really understand that that's who they are,
Right.
is, loved and imperfectly perfect, and they're here for a reason.
And I think I was on a panel this past week out here, and one of the questions was about prevention. And, I thought about this long before that too, because prevention is, especially working in a health plan, prevention is really important because
Yes.
it's to get ahead of things. So, but prevention it's so much more than curriculums or groups, even though those things are important. But I think that prevention is coming alongside those high risk families. And what is high risk?
Agreed.
What do you do when you have a mother who has 3 kids and she's barely making ends meet and she can't be home to have those conversations
No.
talking about because she's working 3 jobs to try to keep a roof over the head, but her kids they're getting their needs met by who knows where. It's not
Yes.
that mom's fault.
No, it's not. It's so not that mom's fault.
Prevention has to start with helping people like that and helping those families that are falling apart, because dads are just as important, if not more. Well, I won't say more, but they're the equal with the mom.
They are.
And I've also, that was another thing I see. Majority of these kids that I had, that I was keeping the data on, dads were, who knows where the dad was, and they were all from broken homes. A lot of the kids did not have relationships with their dads, and then the moms, they were, they had their needs, they had their things going on, and a lot of times the kids weren't the top of the priority. But it just was.
Yeah, it's not that they weren't necessarily top priority, but if I have to work 3 jobs to keep the lights on, to keep food on the table, and to be able to get to and from my job.
True.
I'm in 100% survival mode, and I don't have a whole lot left over.
Absolutely.
For my child, and we found, especially if there's multiple children in the house, the older child starts to take on the role of a parent, which, so
Absolutely.
Learning responsibility is a really good thing. But at age 12 or 10, to be responsible for 4 or 5 younger siblings, it's overwhelming, and it's going to alter that child's brain for an overdeveloped sense of responsibility, and all the things that go along with that. And I think that's where, when we train, we go into Title I schools. Title I middle schools are our sweet spot. And those are the kids whose families we're talking about. I was just in a school yesterday, and we were talking about, I said, I know not everybody's family is perfect. I know that. And you have trusted adults right here in this school. You've got, there was a teacher there, and I pointed to her. I said, you've got that teacher. How many of you play sports? Mm-hmm. You've got your coach, right? You've got your school counselor. You've got your school nurse. You've got your school principal. You might have an auntie or a grandma that's a trusted adult that's in your life that you can have those kind of conversations with, that you feel safe around. Trusted adult equals children feel safe. And we can't lay it all on the parents. Mm-hmm. I don't think.
No.
We can't lay it all on the schools.
Right.
We can't lay it all on law enforcement. We
right.
can't lay it all on DCF or family services or the service providers. And there's a huge piece of this that's missing, and that's the companies that sit on this thing.
Amen to that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember.
The big tech companies have got to be held responsible.
So for quite a few years, I would go training with the sergeant, one of the sergeants that was here. He's retired, and he pretty much mentored me for a good 5 years, Sergeant Doty. And when we would go train, he would always lift this up and said, this right here is what's destroying us.
Yep.
This is what's destroying your kids. This was, and I would tell, the parents and everybody else, no matter who they were, you've got to be intrusive. You have to know what's going on in your kid's life.
Well, who pays for this?
Social media,
Who
right?
pays for this? We do. The parents pay the phone bill.
Yep.
And that's the thing, when we go in and we talk to the kids about, what's happening and what's not happening and all that. And I'm like, look, especially because when we talk to the parents, I don't want to invade my child's privacy. I'm like, they're children.
That's right. That's right.
They're children. You're the parent. You're
Yep.
responsible for this. You pay the bill. If something happens on that phone, guess who's responsible? And that sets off a whole different conversation because it's like, oh my gosh, right? And it's the same thing with the young people. I'm like, do you really want to put your parents and your family at risk?
Right.
They don't think, look, their prefrontal cortex isn't developed yet.
Yeah.
They're making snap decisions based on how they feel, and their feelings you burp and the feeling will change. So you're making a decision on how you feel versus facts or some kind of knowledge or checking in with a trusted adult. And that's the piece that's missing, is we've kind of left our kids out on their own for several years now.
Absolutely.
And they've gone to what they know best, right here.
Yep.
And now we're seeing the impact of it.
We are.
Suicide rates are the
highest they've ever been.
Yeah. Well, the number one cause of death for children 10 to 14 is suicide.
That's just so sad.
Yeah. Because they're seeing, and and even because we have interns every semester, and I'm really blessed. My interns have a tendency to stay, like they start with me either their beginning of their junior year, or the second semester of their junior year, and I generally get to keep them all the way through graduation, which I love and appreciate. But I've had interns tell me, they're like, I had to stop being on Snap and Insta and all these other platforms because I'm looking at these perfect lives. My life doesn't look like that. And how am I going to measure up? I'm never going to measure up to that perfect body or that perfect life or that perfect vacation. People talk about filters. I don't even know how to use them. When you're seeing me, you're seeing me. I have no filters because I don't know how to use them. Right? I'm like, you got me. Sorry. Wrinkles and gray hair and all. But when you use those filters, your skin is perfect, your hair is luminous, and your lips are ruby red. And I don't look like that. This is what I look like. And how do you compete as a 13-year-old girl when you're already feeling weird and gangly and, things are starting to blossom and you're trying to figure out how to use the straightener. And luckily glasses are cool right now. They didn't used to be. So you go from glasses to contacts and body parts are altering and you figured out how to use the straightener and your braces are off. But inside, I still feel like an ugly duckling. I'm still that little girl that people made fun of. I'm still that, four eyes or tinsel teeth or, all the other names that kids call each other.
Right.
But you blossom into this beautiful young woman or attractive young man is your, sophomore, junior year of high school. But internally, who you are for yourself is not that.
Right.
Others take advantage of that.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, Kimberly. I'm so glad you're on, Kimberly. She has been contributing to this conversation the entire time. And she said, as a comparison is one of the biggest things that will cause us as a community to go out and keep up with the Joneses at whatever cost. That's why so many children have high anxiety nowadays and suicides. She's also a counselor. And why panic attacks and depression, it's because that comparison to the supposedly perfect lives. And I don't know where we all decided you have to be perfect. I don't know where that came up. I don't know where that conversation happened, but jeepers, it's not gone well. It's not gone well. So let's talk a little bit about, so we talked about your past and kind of what you've seen. And so we saw the abuse was one common denominator. What are a couple of other common denominators that, you saw that parents can start to keep an eyeball out for, or a teacher or a grandma, just like, what are some of those other common denominators that, oh, I should probably talk to my kids about this?
So, basically, I mean, as we were talking, I mean, a lot of what I've seen is just like heavy social media use. That's, majority of the kids that I had, toward the last few years, they were meeting people online, and that's what it was. So really, that was like a common thread.
Mm.
Also, just I'm trying to think. There's so many things. I mean, hiding things, coming back from, just having expensive items that, we'd have some kids return back to placements. They, even if they were gone for a few hours, this isn't even days upon end, coming back with hundreds of dollars and not knowing where they were getting money from.
Wow.
But yet, coming back, going to school. They were going to school all day, and then they would go away for a few hours at night, and they come right back to placement. And little did you know that what was going on with them. I think too is, looking at behavior. You have to look at the behavior. When you see a child that is, normally, their baseline is normally happy, or they're doing well or whatever, and then all of a sudden it changes and they're depressed. They start showing signs of anxiety, and they're just changes. Pay attention to that. I mean, even if they're not being trafficked, something's going on.
Yes. It's so interesting you said that. Is so I was at a school last April in Brevard County. And they asked me to come back in October to train the freshmen. And then I'm going to go back and talk to the seniors probably in April. And I had 7 classes back to back to back. And I've got about an hour-ish with them, 55 minutes. The counselors' offices were full for that day and the next 2 weeks, all of the counselors, because we brought up stuff that nobody's talking about. And we said, look, everyone is here for you. So if you're dealing with something, it's not your fault. We've got your back. It's okay. Their counselors' offices were full for 2 weeks because the kids were dealing with stuff.
Yeah.
And they didn't know how to talk about it.
Yes.
And every time we go out to a school, we have kids disclose.
I bet.
And the thing about online predatory behavior, which, it's kind of like when we talk about the difference between smuggling and trafficking. Smuggling is a crime against a country. Trafficking is a crime against a person. Smuggling can lead to trafficking. However, they're separate and distinct. Online predatory behavior is now being coined digital trafficking, because the same experiences are happening. However, it can start with digital and then go to in-person, right? And kids don't know it's not their fault.
Right.
They think it's their fault. And the behaviors change dramatically.
Dramatically. And that's, that I've seen that a lot. And those were honestly, a lot of the things, a lot of neglect. But I can't, so I will tell you that just in the ones that I've seen, now this doesn't mean everybody, but just in the ones I've seen, so out of 368 kids,
right?
Okay, rarely, I don't think I had one that came from a stable home and just happened to be online and just happened to get wrapped up on Snapchat with the wrong I didn't have any like that. No, none of mine came like that. No, I'm not going to say that can ever happen, because we all know trafficking happens to anybody, anywhere. It doesn't, we all know that. But But what I did see is I'm going to bring up the health plan now. Okay.
Yeah.
This is why I will continue my mission with working in a health plan, because 99% of them had Medicaid.
Wow.
Okay. I probably had less than 5 that had private insurance. Now,
Wow.
yes. Now, I will say though, good for them, because you will get more services from Medicaid than you will from your private plan when it comes to being in residential treatment. Okay. So, however, what I've learned is this, is that Medicaid is regulated by CMS. So it's the our federal Medicaid, Medicare regulator.
Right.
Okay. And there's medical criteria, and medical criteria has to be met for a child to go into a treatment facility. Some of these kids are so traumatized, and trafficking exploitation is not a medical criteria. So unless you could really pull something out when they're writing up these packets so they get approved by by Medicaid, it's hard to get. Well, what I've seen now, this isn't every health plan. It's not even the one I work for. But the one that I used to work for was very difficult to get that child into treatment, because the criteria that they had, there was nothing that said trafficking or exploitation.
Wow.
And running away is not a criteria. Now, however, it should be for a trafficked child, because they could be running to their death.
Right.
So, and
Oh
that,
yeah.
and we've seen that. I mean, we had a kid out here that that actually they found her. She was a young girl, a minor, and they found her body decomposed on the side of the highway. And she was a traffic victim. And she went AWOL. She went AWOL from a residential treatment facility. And so they were doing their job. Everybody was doing their job.
Yes.
She just went AWOL. And DCS worked hard to find her. The police did, everybody did, but they couldn't. And I'm going to tell you what, the other thing that one of the strongest things that could be put in place for anybody that's recovering, in my opinion, from this horrific ordeal, is they have a survivor peer support.
Yes.
And I've seen kids come out more on top successfully and on their healing journey with the survivor in place, versus the kids that did not have a survivor as part of their case.
Yeah. Because it's kind of like when someone who's never had a child tries to give you parenting advice.
Right.
Right. It's
right.
in this it's in a similar realm.
Yeah.
A little less, but it's really in a similar realm of, you've never experienced this before. How can, I can empathize.
Right.
I can sympathize. I can bring compassion.
Right.
And we've all had our fair share of life trauma. We have.
Yes, we have.
Dogs have died, parents have passed away, friends have left. We've all had our fair share of trauma.
Yes.
Real trauma. This is a whole different level, because it's personal trauma.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again. There is no getting over that, and no one chooses it. And unless you've actually experienced it, there's no way any of us can language, be with, fully grasp, or understand what that's like. Just can't.
Yep.
No. Just can't. And, and it's really interesting you say that, because one of the organizations we work real closely with here, One More Child, they actually have one of the largest mobile units specifically for children who have been trafficked. And they go wherever the child is. And even if the child hasn't left the life yet, they're still there. And it's a survivor, it's a clinician, and a therapist.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, so you've got these services wrapping around the child and the family, as well. They work in partnership with
Wow.
DCF and Voices of Florida. Yeah, you know what? For people can have all kinds of opinions about Florida. I'm happy I live here, and we're probably one of the most cohesive, and we still have
Yes.
a long way to go. Don't get me wrong, but we're probably one of the most cohesive areas
Mm-hmm.
to help protect and take care of children once they're disclosed. And we're not perfect, and there's still some mountain to go. However, we just talked about this too, collaboratively. We collaboratively.
Yes.
I know my lane. I educate. That's what I do. I don't
Mm-hmm.
ever want to. I just can't be on the backside. I just can't. And just my little heart couldn't take it, and other stuff. But I know everybody all the way down the lane.
Yeah.
Right? I know the immediate responders. I work with law enforcement. We've
Yeah.
got organizations like One More Child and Flight Center and United
Yeah.
Abolitionists and Voices for Florida. And, there's so many organizations. I know who to call.
Right.
And I know who to send the parent to. It's like, here, child's missing, reach out to these 3 organizations. I can't promise who's going to help you. It's not what I do. Here.
Right.
I'm going to give you a resource. And I think if more and more of us did that across the country, and I know who to work with across the country too. And if I don't, they do.
Yes.
I know I can pick up the phone and call you or Kathleen Wynn and be like, hey, I just got a call from such and such. Who do you know?
Right.
And that's really what it's about. It's the collaboration to take care of that individual, child or adult.
Absolutely. And you're right. And it's funny because once you start meeting people that do the work in this field across the country, it's almost like there's a bond.
There is.
There is. And no matter what we do, and I being here in Arizona, like I've come across so many amazing people, and just always trying to do better. Like Phoenix Dream Center, they have a wonderful program for adults. Now, not every survivor likes the program, but there's ones who do, and they've been very successful. And there's I give a shout out to Phoenix PD Heat Unit. I mean, those guys and girls, what they do. I mean, we got Super Bowl coming up, and
I'll be out there.
You'll be here, and I'll tell you what. I mean, we got a lot of shenanigans that are going to be going on, and it disturbs me, and it disturbs me because there's the trafficking, and I know that some people believe that the numbers are no different than they are when they're at the Super Bowl. But here's the way I look at it, okay? You got people coming in, a lot more people are going to be here than normal. You got a lot more money coming in than normal because of that. And people are going to be drinking out of their mind.
Yep.
There are all kinds of things going on. And I mean, there is going to be a big problem. And
there is.
And I mean, how do you? And it bothers me. Like, it really does. Like, I've like literally been bothered by this I can't wait for it to be over. And I'm not even out there like the PD is. Like,
it's the energy. It's the dark energy it brings.
Yeah.
It's just the dark energy, and people focus so much attention around the Super Bowl.
No, they do.
And because and I get it, rightly so. Right.
Yeah.
And we have spring training. And we have car shows. And we have all these other events.
Yes, we do.
That bring men in with money. Women in with money too.
Oh, yeah.
They bring men in with money. And it's what do we do afterwards? And I will say Tampa did a really great job prior, and we're keeping it going. I live in Orlando, but I work real closely with people over in Tampa too. And we're looking to roll something out over there we're just looking to roll something. I don't want to say more about it because it's a secret until we roll it out. Anyway. But they created the 211 number. So it's really easy to call. They created this, partnership with a crisis center. So people, and there's stuff all over the airport. And
Yes.
Ashley Moody, our attorney general, she's like, yeah, not in my state. DeSantis
Yep.
is the same way, not in my state. It's not
Yep.
happening in my state. You know, we worked with truckers against trafficking. We worked with Lyft. We worked with UPS. You know, there's all these companies that drive around that really they're our eyes and ears. And I think
Yes.
that's one of the reasons why, yes, we're the third in the nation. Okay.
But
But
you got
there's two
a large
sides to that. Front
population.
side, back side. Front
Yeah.
side is people are making the call. They know to make the call. Back side is they're having to make the call.
Right. Yeah.
You know, but at
Yeah.
least they know what action to take and there's not this helplessness.
Yep.
And to me, that's everything. That's why every time we train, every time we talk to kids, I'm like, there's three things you're going to do. You're going to put this number in your phone, right? You're
Yeah.
going to tell me who your trusted adult is, and you're going to go make sure you talk to people. You're going to keep an eye out for your friends.
Right.
We are our brother's keepers. That's who we are.
You know, Arizona has we got a lot going on. We just they're going to be doing stuff in the airport. We now have billboards. We got a lot going on. We have a great governor's task force.
Yes.
Out here, I really love our task force, and the McCain Institute has done quite a bit around trafficking and Arizona Trust, and you know the law enforcement, FBI out here, Homeland Security. I mean, I could go on and name. I mean, and just the people, the hearts, and even the insurance companies. I mean, who would think insurance companies would step up to the plate and really care that much about their members, that they want to make sure that they're protected and that they have the appropriate services so that they can get over this trauma. I mean, It takes a village. It takes the prevention. It takes the immediate response. It takes the doctors and the nurses and it takes the behavioral health techs and the therapists. It takes the neighbors. We just had an incident out here in Scottsdale.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. I read about it.
And I mean, if that neighbor didn't recognize trafficking, obviously they took a class or something, or they knew it somehow, then that who knows what happened to that lady. So, you know, I gotta say, and I always tell people, it takes a village. It takes every single one of us, no matter what we do, what our lens is. I don't have children, but I'm an adult foster home for two autistic girls. And, you know, they're very vulnerable.
Yes.
And, you know, it scares me because the boundaries, they wouldn't know. They could be trafficked like that and they have no clue. So to me, that's a whole nother untapped area is the
absolutely.
And so I will tell you, it's never ending. The other thing I wish that would get better, and I know that everybody wishes this within our world that you and I work in, is the data. I mean, it's like this. So when people say to me, "Well, I need data," well, I need data.
Absolutely. We we do pre and post tests every group of kids we have. Because to me, that's going to tell me, is our program effective or not? Are they making effective change? Are they actually doing what we invited and coached them to do? Are they checking in with their friends? When they see their friend coming into school on a Monday, completely different than on a Friday.
Yes.
You know, and because we're working with the boys and girls clubs, we separate the boys and the girls. I work with the boys because, you know, yes, they can be a little more challenging than the girls. They're very vocal. They're very talkative. They like to share. And I can be with it. I don't take it as disrespectful. It's how they're processing the information that I'm giving them. And we actually took one of the kids. It's one of the popular kids. And I said, you know, I coached him. I whispered in his ear. I said, okay. I said, I want you to walk in the room like you would never walk into a room. You know, bring your energy in, put your head down, put your hands, you know, in your pockets, just be not you.
Right.
And then I asked the other kids, I said, okay, if he came into school like that, what would you do? You know, and the boys are like, I'd be like, yo, man, you okay? And one of the kids, he was so bright, just so brilliant, just right in tune with where we were going. And one of them says, well, what if he says I'm fine? I go, it's a great question. What would you do if he says I'm fine? Kid raises his hand. He goes, I'd go tell the teacher. I'd go find somebody, I'd go find an adult, I would go find someone to say, hey, that's not normal.
Right.
I'm like, bingo, right there, right there. You're just,
Right.
if each one of us just paid a little more attention to what was happening out in the world,
Mm-hmm.
the differences we could make.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, people say, like, I've had people say to me, do I get discouraged because it just seems like they don't, like you fighting and fighting and fighting, and sometimes it's hard to get, because as well as I do that a lot of times it's hard for even these kids to see that they're victims. They don't.
Yes.
A lot of times they don't see that.
No.
And to me, it's like, look, if we can make the difference with one,
Yes.
you don't know how many other lives will be touched.
No.
And I think that we just, we got to fight the fight. We do.
We do. And I don't know if you saw my post on LinkedIn. I'm gonna. It's gotten a lot of hits because of really the focus it's taking on the warriors. It's taking on a warrior, and it really defines what a warrior is.
I did see that.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I'm going to read it because I think it's so
Okay.
poignant for what we do in this realm. And quite frankly, we're all warring against something, right? If you're a single parent, you're warring against protecting your children. If you've got a child that's got a chronic illness, you're warring against the illness. All of it. So it's not just in the realm of human trafficking. It's warriors are not what you think of as warriors. The warrior is not someone who fights because no one has the right to take another life. The warrior, for us, is one who sacrifices himself or herself for the good of others. His task is to take care of the elderly, the defenseless, those who cannot provide for themselves, and above all, the children, the future of humanity. It's a quote from Sitting Bull.
Wow.
So powerful.
It really is.
So powerful. And, we've got, and I so love going to the different conferences, especially with the law enforcement officers,
Yeah, me
because
too.
I get to stand in front of kids because, our police officers have gotten a little bit of a bad rap the past several years. Mm-hmm. You and I know what they do. You and I know what they're up against.
That's right.
And to be able to stand in front of a group of kids and say, look, I just spent, 3 days with 800 law enforcement officers from around the country being trained to fully understand if something happens to you, what to do in the realm of online exploitation, human trafficking, child labor. I go 800. I go, and that's just one conference that's happening around the globe. And like this newfound respect and understand and feeling like they matter.
Mm-hmm.
That's what kids want. They just want to feel like they matter. That they're loved, and they're valued, and they're heard.
And someone believes in them.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. And we also have to watch the way we, people talk to their children. Talk positive. Don't call them names and yell. I mean, just like stupid or swearing at them, or oh my gosh, I've heard that so many
Even
times.
Self-talk though. Self-talk too, Lisa.
Yes.
Self-talk. Like if we talk to our friends how we talk to ourselves,
right?
We'd be slugged or slapped often.
True. That's true too. Yes. Yep.
Really.
Yep.
And so it's managing that self-talk here and out here. And it's taking that breath. One of the things we talk about with parents is the moment you start bringing this topic up, they're going to get a little squirmy. It's okay. It's okay for them to be a little squirmy because you got to start somewhere. And just be curious and ask the questions. And gosh, I was getting, I started getting some weird DMs on my Instagram page. And does that ever happen to you? And what do you do about it? Because it's weird. I don't know what to do. Play stupid. It's okay. Play stupid. Because your kids will tell you exactly what they do. And they'll show you. Right? Right. And then that opens the dialogue. That opens the door to have the conversation. And then one day, your child will come to you because they've all done it. And we've been in front of 23,000 kids, 7,000 kids over this past year. And when I ask the question, how many of you have either gotten a DM or an explicit picture that you didn't ask for? They'll raise their hands. Fifth graders raising their hands. Okay. So it's not that they don't know about it.
Right.
And it's not that they're not participating because everyone's doing it. It's when they come to you and go, that thing that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's pressuring me and I don't know what to do, Mom, and I'm scared.
Right.
They won't look at you in the eye. They're going to get all fidgety and look down and probably crying. You're going to have to sit and listen for a minute because they can't get it out. And those next 3 seconds are everything. It's got to look at me and go, it's okay, honey. It's not your fault. I got you.
That's right.
We'll get this handled. And as a parent, you stop the interaction immediately. You block them. You don't delete them. And you call law enforcement and you call Nick.
Mm-hmm.
Call law enforcement immediately. They'll come out and they'll download all the material on your phone because all of that's evidence. And the parent's natural response is delete, 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 throw the phone away, something. It's like, no, that's evidence. That can actually help catch somebody. I was talking to somebody today. There was someone that was grooming a child at a school.
Mm-hmm.
And FBI's all over him. And they discovered that he's extorting 50 other kids.
Wow.
So for your child to think that it's the only one, they're not.
Oh my God.
And the moment they come forward, and the moment they're like, you know what, Mom, I can't do this. I got to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You could be saving another child's life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we have 4 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Went by fast.
I did.
What do you want? Yeah. What do you want to share? What do you want to say? I'm going to put your Career Source website up. What would you like to, or Care Source, what would you like to say about your product and your programs?
Oh, Care Source is wonderful Medicaid health plan. And, they really believe in making sure that their members that have experienced trafficking are getting the best treatment that they can. And they come support them, and that they're very person-centered and trauma-informed approach is amazing. So, we're in 6 different states, and we have over 2 million members.
Wow.
Yep. And so, just really proud to work for them, really proud to work for a place that is very heart-centered and believes in their members and their healing journey and making them as healthy as they can, both mentally, physically. So
it's so great. So great. Lisa, thank you so much for being on with me today. See how fast it went? See, I told you it'd be so easy. It's so funny. When I invite people, they get all nervous. I'm like, no, we're just going to have a conversation. That's all we're going to do. Right. And then all of a sudden the hour's up and people are like, wait, what? We're done? Yeah. Just, because we talk. So I'm going to put our website up too. Y'all know that we have tons and tons of resources on our website. You can go under programs to our parent toolkit, and that'll give you ways to start this conversation with your kids. We've got our safety guide. Should God forbid your child go missing, tells you exactly what to do and how to do it. We have our parent tech talk page. We have our teen tech talk page. So just tons of resources. And then, of course, all the libraries of the videos for here on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. And you can get those links on our website too. And then lastly, for those of you locally and far away, next week we've got Human Trafficking Awareness Week, and we're starting Wednesday with we get to talk to kids out at the UCF Rosen College of Hospitality, which I'm really looking forward to participating in. And then Friday, we have this really great thing called the Human Trafficking Awareness Day. It's all day. It's free. It's hybrid. So if you live in and around Central Florida, register and come on. If you live around the country, you're more than welcome to attend. Just click on the link and register. There's going to be 2 closed sessions specifically for law enforcement. So if you know anyone in law enforcement and you'd like for them to know about this, just send them the link and go, hey, there's a couple of really great panels. One's about collaboration and one's about the use of technology in helping catch the bad guys. So yeah, Kimberly's like, yay, Kimberly's like, I'm so glad I joined you. So thank you, Kimberly, for joining us, and Danny and everybody else that was on and watching us tonight. We truly appreciate you. And this is, we got 2 more weeks of Human Trafficking Awareness Month and Prevention Month. And I just invite you to go out and have those challenging conversations. Your kids want to talk to you about it and they just don't know how. So you can go find a resource. You can go find an article. I've, listed a couple of articles in there, and have that conversation with your kids. They're waiting for you. So y'all have a great night. Thank you so much, Lisa. I can't wait to see you in a few weeks.
You too, Jan. Thank you so much.
Really, thank you so much. Y'all have a great night. Be safe. And if you all ever have any questions, you can always find us through our website. Good night.